Good afternoon. I welcome you in the last session of the day. We will have the opportunity to listen about session summaries. Today we had 4 sessions, and we will have in 5-6 minutes a brief presentation on what was discussed and what are the major conclusions, outcomes of each session. So I will start a very short presentation. I hope that you can see it. So the first session is on Industry Commons translator. The chair of the session was Gerhard Kolbeck from GCL. And please, Gerhard, can you join the stage and present us the outcomes of this session?
Can I share the presentation?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I cannot share at the moment, so this is. I have a few slides. It would be easier just to. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yes, that's it. That's what I need. Yes. So just a few words on the session today about translation. The session we had 3 speakers on advancing translation materials modeling, on translation of innovation challenges, and on knowledge engineering translation experiences from the biomedical domain. And it was a really a great session that supported the project in working towards our objectives for the definition of the profile of an ontologist translator coach, establishing the best practice, and providing translation training resources and a directory, and promoting the role to ensure ontologized data documentation. So I just summarized a few points, and of course I cannot do justice to all of the things that were said. I organized it a little bit along the points that we would then also like to put in our roadmap. So state of the art is that EMMC introduced translation into materials modeling with the 6 steps of translation shown here, with the sort of 4 key points that close a loop between the business KPIs and the implementation options to the analysis to support decision making. And to that was added in recent Autotrans project the role, another translation step to do the conceptualization of into an ontology to support the innovation challenge options and solutions. Also important, what mentioned in the state of the art, the MODA. These are known in the materials modeling field, or CADA also in the characterization. These are basically tables that help the documentation and do the conceptualization, which is important for the ontology development. And so translators in general work successfully based on the conventions and standards and communicate and conclude step by step and use common terminology. So that's already very important. And then they follow semiotic triads by reasoning. So give it the best shot of what you know, then doing some more objective, and then or deductive reasoning, and then trying to come up with by inductive reasoning to more general, more new knowledge. Then we heard about knowledge engineering, which is important here as a discipline to support the technical side of it, of the translation. But the challenge is that it's based on a multitude of technology stacks, which are very, very diverse. And so the gaps We need to improve the quality of information exchange to capture knowledge better, not just in people's minds. To have workflow tools for translators. We lack this coherent technology stack, so there is a big gap in comparison to, for example, artificial intelligence. Knowledge engineering stacks are often misapplied to business problems and come up with a steep upfront investment. There is generally a lack of people and translators that can ensure the right knowledge engineering approach to the right business problem. Now, a definition of success would be that translation can support a global, value-based, mission-driven approach, that there's a common understanding language system of concepts for improved dialogue, that what is developed is captured as knowledge, not just as individual solutions, that all actors have relevant training in knowledge engineering, and the knowledge engineering translator is widely cultivated as a role in industry. So ontologies and then that ontologies are there also available to support translation in terms of machine processable, making sense, and interoperable software solutions. Recommended actions are open innovation projects involving many stakeholders, so utilizing the opportunity for translation to involve really everyone from citizen to politics, away from isolated domains. To achieve quality assured translation, ISO 9000, make open part of FAIR, so the value of FAIR data is understood, but really for ontologies, it is very important that they are open and can be really accessible and really openly accessible more widely. Ontologies need more funding. They are chronically underfunded, and relevant initiatives that we also heard about today, also in the plenary, for example, the IAOA, need to be supported. And these associations can then themselves support training programs that are hands-on for continuous professional development on self-learning focus to provide relevant knowledge of knowledge engineering to all the involved actors. Addressing the issues with the technology stack to make it a more coherent solution. So this is basically what the conclusions from the session were.
Thanks a lot, Gerhard. I do not see immediate questions, but stay on the stage. Potentially there will be later on. And I kindly invite participants to write questions in the chat or to raise their hands, and we can discuss, invite you to the stage and discuss together.
And I'd like to just take the opportunity to thank the speakers again in that session as well.
Yes, and thank you for this rich input for this session. We are coming then to the second session on ontology interoperability. The chair of the session was Stefano Borgo, and I kindly invite the host to invite Stefano to the stage. Hi, Stefano. Nice to see you. Do you have a presentation to share?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's
short
fine.
one.
Oh, it's fine. You have short time.
Well, then I'm perfect. I've done the right job.
Exactly.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so this is about interoperability, and the point was try to understand from our experts how we can actually imagine the Ontology ecosystem to work. So remember, you have to put together and make to interact top-level ontologies, middle-level ontologies, and domain-level ontologies. So the understanding of how to link them and what kind of reasoning you can do once you have done this is essential for us to reach a level where the ecosystem actually makes sense and attract attention and is used and improved. And for this, we asked three experts, Jerome Zenat, which concentrated on his expert area, so ontology matching and alignment, and Tilman Sarkowski, that has done a lot of work for integrating different ontology languages and to try to have a mix of different logics, able to work together in order to be able to put different ontological models developed by different people in different languages to still be used for a single reasoning system. And finally, Claudio Mazzolo that focused on the conceptual heterogeneity of the ontologies and the problem of putting together ontologies that have different ontological commitments. And this was very interesting and challenging. Cannot report about that, but I can report some of the focus we tried to answer and some questions that were raised. So the objectives were, okay, give the different types of links that we can establish, and the three presentation went through 3 different ways to look how to establish a link. The second objective was clarify the purpose of these links and what kind of reasoning they allow. And this was pretty clear. The possibility to reason with ontologies connected by different types of alignments, that proved to be quite problematic, at least on the opinion of our experts. And then the idea was to discuss how to actually build mixing different types of links. So just to give you an idea of the discussion that we had, and I thank not only the speakers, but also for the people that posed a lot of interesting questions. We went through something like, how can we know the reasoning output of matched ontology is reliable? And then, unfortunately, several of these questions have not a very positive answer, meaning that there is quite a bit of work to make this system to achieve the level we would consider to be satisfactory. So there are open questions like how can we set up tools to establish the reliability of the results in a numerical way? So if you cannot be logically certain, at least you can do something which is more at the quantitative level. So you have some trust on the system, even if not the full trust that you could achieve with the logical reasoning. Another question was if we can actually reduce all the mappings to some type of our language, and the answer was no. The problem is that it's not twice, so it cannot be, because sometimes you need a really strong expressive languages. And the other negative answer is that we do not have a methodology to reduce a complex query into something which expressed in a weaker language. So there is no uniform way to do the reduction. That's something we will have to think about. Actually, the community has to think about, because it will become very essential for this kind of systems to be successful. A third question is, how do you take into account the ability of abstraction of different stakeholders? Well, for some types of abstraction, like generalization, we have an answer that this is answered by ontology matching techniques. In other cases, when you do have a different perspective in modeling or different types of granularities, it's much harder. Another issue was about the heterogeneity you find in these ontologies. It can be at the lexical, syntactical, semantical, and semiotical level. So we have tools to face each of them as a separate problem, but not nothing that can combine and treat all of them or a bunch of them at the same time. So this is also something interesting to investigate. Some positive question is what are alignment for top-level or middle-level ontologies facilitating matching at the lower level? And the answer is well-resounding yes. This was agreed by everybody. And finally, we posed some questions saying, okay, but suppose we succeed. We are now in the future and we manage to build the ecosystem. which result would you be interested or curious to know that we were able to achieve? And here's a couple answers. One expert said, well, I would really love to see how you build a tool that can solve the semiotic and interpretation-based interoperability problem. And the other was, I would really love to know how you can use data when there is a real inconsistency in the ontology where they've been collected. So ontology have different ontological commitments, and still you can coherently use the data that they store. And this is all for this section. And I want to thank the speaker. I want to thank everybody that raising all the interesting questions. And I hope I substitute Nicola Guarino, which was supposed to be the chair of the session, that couldn't attend, unfortunately, for personal reasons. And I hope I substitute him to a decent level. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Stefano, and also thanks to all participants to this session and rich input for Ontology Commons project. We are coming to the next session, enabling intra-ontology interoperability through shared terminology, and the presenter will be Dimitris Kiritsis. So the host, please invite Dimitris to the stage. And if there are questions, please just type in the chat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we do. We do not see you.
Can you see me also?
Yes,
yeah, you can see me. So hi Nadja, hi Gerhard, hi Stefano, hello to everyone. So let me find the good file to share.
Mm-hmm.
This one.
Okay, we see it.
Can you see it now?
Yes, it's good.
So this is a short report about the third session of our workshop, which was chaired by Silvana. And first of all, I would like to thank very much the Trust IT team for the support and the managing so well, and also helping with the notes. So the objective of this session, which was on enabling intra-ontology interoperability through shared terminology. So it is how the Ontology Commons can contribute to, let's say, harmonize in terms of intra-ontology interoperability the current efforts in a global setting on standardization with ontologies. So we had stakeholders, very permanent stakeholders, very well recognized and known in the international scene about that. And we expect that the outputs of this session also will support the conduct of the standardization impact report and also the roadmap of the Ontology Commons project. So we had 4 speakers in this session. So Barry Smith, which is well known with the BF ontology and all his research since years in Buffalo. Serme Gulvan Dunu from NIST. Both of them are active in the Industrial Ontologies Foundry. Ulrike Persson from IIRDS on standardization in the IoT domain, and the representative from the industrial sector with Nicolas Figet from Airbus, and how at Airbus they are using ontology standards, ontologies, and ontology standards for Industry 5.0. So from all these speakers, we heard about how ontologies can be used to, let's say, to harmonize standards and offer more smart standards to the community. So we heard about the some of the recent achievements in standardizing ontologies, particularly with top-level ontology BFO, which is already a standard, so 2.1.2.3.8 part 1. And we learned that the 2 other standards are coming there, Dolce and Tupper. And Barry informed us that also, which is one of the Ontology Commons projects, how to align these top-level ontologies with efforts, for example, that could be undertaken to align somehow Dolce and BFO. And Ulrike told us about the efforts in Europe and more particularly in Germany, and the needs in this domain, particularly in applications on industrial and Internet of Things. And the long, Nicholas informed us about the long story with ontology developments at Airbus, particularly in model-based, model-driven design and model-based system engineering, and the needs and the challenges and issues that there are with ontologies, for example, heterogeneity of ontologies, non yet common practices on building ontologies, etc. So as an outcome and takeaways, I would say that there is much going on that direction, and Ontology Commons is a vehicle to facilitate and harmonize the efforts that are done, but it is difficult. We see the difficulty to keep track on what's going on. And as I said, so Ontology Commons' ambition is to help to aggregate all this information and efforts together in Europe, but also with international players. So there is a novelty that ISO references are said to be available as open source and for public use. So it seems that this is not always true, since you have to buy the reports. But on the other hand, so industry gives value to standards that are endorsed from ISO because they trust that all the investment that has been done through years, so that, agree on common things takes time, as Ulrike said, and agreeing on everything common terms, for example, takes time. And ISO is the top level of arriving to this common agreement, so industry trusting ISO standards. So there is this effort from EU and other standardization organizations working on smart standards. But so we would like to learn more about that. So there will be a dedicated chapter on ontologies and semantic interoperabilities within 2022 of the ICT Rolling Plan of Standardization, and their connections with the EC units that are involved in that will help. And as a little bit more about the smart standards, so they have to respond to the needs of the market for agile development and responsive to the market needs. And testbed frameworks are required, as it was highlighted by the speakers. And so we need to find the channels to do that as a community and get as much users as we can to be involved. So in Ontology Commons, we have a good number of demonstrators, and we expect that this will help us to do it. Also in the IOF, there are a number of industrial cases that are developed. And in terms of how we do it, so before we arriving to ISO, so the national standards bodies, and they have to create, or they are available to us an interface to go from standardization communities to the ISO standards in the international standardization bodies. So finally, so I think you learned about the Industrial Ontologies Foundry, and there is an open call for new members, and the link is given here. And personally, I'm happy to see that there is a so strong link and collaboration and cooperation between Ontology Commons and IOF. Thank you very much for joining these workshops in this session.
Thanks, Dimitris. And we are coming to the fourth session of the day on ontologies stratification. And we will have presenter Arko Paul Sarkar, who will present briefly outcomes of this session. So the host, please invite Arko to the stage.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We still do not see you.
Yes, now
Now it works, we see. And you can share your file.
This. Okay. Can I see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
Now it works. Now it's okay.
Fantastic. Okay. So, so we had the ontology stratification session for session number 2, second session of work package 2. So it is about ontology stratification. The scope was to understand the vertical modularization of an ontology development between top, mid-level, and then domain-level ontology, and to understand different ways to address this vertical organization and how important it is for ontology development. And also we wanted to understand if what are the drawbacks faced by the practitioner who adopt this vertical modularization. So we had Aldo Gangemi, Will Sobel, and Emanuele Ghedini as our presenter. The session was hosted by Hedi Karai. We actually had the speakers from from 3 different ecosystems of top-level ontology. So Aldo Gangemi is engaged in the in the Dolce ontology, and then Will Sobel is right now much more engaged in the BFO ecosystem from the IOA effort, and then Emanuele is from the EMO top level ontology ecosystem. I will quickly go through the points which each of the speaker had mentioned in their speech. First of all, okay, the first speaker was Aldo Gangemi. He first showed some of the characterization of these different levels, for example, top level and mid level. But he said that okay, the core ontology, the core reference ontology, can be assigned to any of the module in the domain based on the requirement. So it is much more like a role that a particular module can get based on the domain, based on the domain's requirement. And then top level ontologies has a better trade-off, how it is that if it is too much strict in the axiomatization, then it becomes very difficult for the domain level ontologies to follow it, and also it lacks the coverage from the different domain. Whereas if we adopt some fuzzy and relaxed modeling, then it can cover a lot of domain, but it is very difficult to model. At the same time, he showed 2 different aspects called vision and specificity. So vision is kind of like perspective, and specificity is the standard stratification between top level, domain level, and mid level. He also showed some of these some of the past projects regarding this stratification and how they are used there. For example, OntoPIA has a different vision, different types of vision in a level called supporting level, and he also has ARCO in which also combine this vision and specificity. But then there are some projects, say for example data.cnr.it, which, and then also Framestar, which do not have a strict stratification. And lastly, he showed that, okay, this type of modularization can also be achieved by pattern, and there is a language called OPLA, which can be used to annotate the ontology for understanding this modularization in a better way. Then I will come to Will Sobel. His talk was more on the IOF development, which is going on currently, and his experience on the ontology stratification strategy from that project. After a brief description and the scope of IOF, he described he actually said that, okay, the IOF activities was not actually resonating the domain experts' view. So there was a need for creating a kind of core reference ontology, which can act as a bridge between the top level ontologist point of view, which is very much rigorous ontologist view, and the domain experts view, and which is also a very delicate balance according to him. And he also said that, okay, the IOF is actually modularized in a little bit different way, where it is the topics, subtopics define different kind of working groups, which also collaborate among themselves. And at the mid-level, the current activity is going on to have a kind of core reference ontology, which can act as a bridge between this top and domain level, as I said, and actually provide four utilities as per him, which is: one is abstraction to this top level ontologist complexity, then also enable a pattern-based development, and of course mass complexity of this different top level axioms and patterns, and then create adequate axiomatization so that the domain level use cases can actually use them, implement them without understanding it, which is sometimes very difficult to understand. Then coming to the last talk, which is given by Emanuele Ghedini from University of Bologna, and he also a main person from the MO top level ontology. So he described the MO top level ontology, which has a simple structure from the mereology and causality as its foundation. And also he described how it has an agnostic view on the plurality. MO adopts the strict nominalism and physicalism. Real world objects are 4D material. There is no abstract entity. Classes and collections are real world objects, considered as real world object. And also it is persistent and holistic, but at the same time he also showed us that how these two different utilities called perspective and discipline, which MO embraces, can help in this modularization. So this perspective is a way a particular object can be described in many different ways, and then discipline is very close to the domain. So from some example, we saw that, okay, data, any kind of data value can be described in many different ways, and also it can be linked to a real object by semiosis method. And then perspective can let the user or any ontologies to describe a particular object in different ways and also be categorized by different types using this discipline. So we had a intensive panel discussion, and then we discussed whether this type of stratifications, I mean the standard stratification, are really necessary or not. What is the importance of that? Of course, it was everybody's view that it is a difficult task to identify these modules, these top level, middle level, very clearly, because there is not many clear, I mean, characterization for that. Of course, TLO has a rigorous logical structure which can help in the MLO and DLO development, but it is also necessary for the upper level ontologies to address the domain experts' point of view. And there is no doubt that that this type of stratification help in the cross-domain interoperability, but it also put constraint on the domain level development. So a new kind of thinking may be necessary. For example, MO is created by bottom-up approach, which takes all the domain level requirement into account. And basically, a top-level ontology is more suitable if it is created from these domain level requirements. So what are the takeaways? I should have takeaways written here. That there are varieties of adoption of this stratification. There is no standard which are followed by this top level, middle level, and domain level modularization. And also the boundary between top level, middle level, and the domain level is somewhat fuzzy. Of course, as I said, top level needs to address the domain experts' point of view. However, everybody kind of agreed that, okay, there is a need of top level, but the top level needs to be pluralistic, and the mid-level ontologies are more suitable to act as a bridge between these complex metaphysical views what top-level ontologies take and the practical application, and so that the domain level practitioner can make ontology without bothering about the complexity of top-level ontology. And that is all. And then I thank you, everybody who supported this session, especially Trust IT and Hedy Carey for conducting.
Thanks a lot, Arko. Maybe Gerhard, Dimitri, Stefano can also start a video to show finally your faces once again. I would like really to thank to all presenters of outcomes of the sessions, and I think it's really a rich input which you presented to us now, and very useful that we heard about all sessions today. I thank to all speakers of the day today, plenary and impulse speakers, also chairs and rapporteurs who supported the first day of the workshop. We are approaching slowly the end of the first day, and I invite you to join tomorrow exactly at 10 a.m. Central European time. So we will start tomorrow a little bit earlier than today. We will have 2 plenary talks and 4 sessions like today, and I'm absolutely sure that we will have also very interesting discussions. So with this, I thank you once again and see you tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.